Alright, hello, welcome, it's Monday, which means it's skill review day. Lamageland Outis, as well as Fang Hook Office Fixer Honglure being revealed today. So we're going to break those two skills down, first with obviously Outis, and then we'll move to Honglure at the end if you do care about that unit as well. But I was going to record this at 5:30, but they didn't reveal the second part until 6:40, and so I didn't have time at the very moment. But I do have time now, and so I'll review these skills really quickly. I'll get into explain them to you, and then hopefully you'll be able to understand them better because it is a two-parter. Do not worry, okay? It's 2 pages, but actually very easy to understand. Okay, a lot of these characters that have crazy amounts of keywords and yada yada yada, actually what you want to do is you want to read their passes first. Okay, because the passes will tell you the full story. So you see Blood Feast, Blood Tinged Sins, and you're like, what does this all mean? Read the passives. Okay, there's 2 pages of passes for a reason, so we're gonna read them. Okay, first and foremost is going to be the skill Blood Feast. If this unit is on the field, or is one of the units that can appear on the stage, increases Blood Feast value by the amount of bleed damage collectively received every turn since turn 1. What does this mean? It means that if this unit is being fielded by you as an active unit, or is on the bench as a backup unit, not just sitting there on the bench, but as a backup unit, then you will start counting for the Blood Feast value. It is a shared pool value, and every time someone takes bleed, you will put in some damage into the Blood Feast, so this number gets pretty high. Okay? It's because the amount of bleed can stack up really, really high, right? Since turn 1. This will be a pool of number that, you will be able to tap into later on for other things like consuming Blood Feast. So, what does bleed mean? Bleed is a debuff, okay? It's a stack. Basically, every time a character will clash or you roll a coin for skill damage, they will take a stack of the bleed and reduce their count by 1. So you can imagine if their potency for bleed is high, let's say 50, and then their count is 3, then they'll take 3 instances of 50. When they do a clash or when they do a skill roll. So this can start really stacking up high if you're not careful. Let's take a look before we go into these other ones, because these other ones are supportive passives. We're gonna go into the other page and read her other things. So step 1, sewing target. Take more damage every bleed on self. This is a debuff she will apply to an enemy that makes her take more bleed damage, which will be good for Blood Feast, because the more bleed damage you have, the more Blood Feast will stack. Blood Tinged Scissor Blade. This is a self buff, very similar to Coffin on Earl King Heath, or Dual or anything like that. It is a unique passive that stacks on herself that at certain points levels up. So she has Blood Tinged Scissor Blade, and then at certain values, which we can't see yet, she will get 2 and 3. At tier 3, she will probably go into that the bird mask form. And if you drop below it, you'll revert to the previous levels. At level 2, you gain offense level up and defense level down for every number of stacks. At Blood Tinged Scissor Blade 3, she'll gain offense level up for every number of stacks. So you really want to be at the 3rd level. You want to stack this up high. We'll see how to stack this up high later. All you need to know is that high Blood Tinged Scissors, good. Big number, good. The last one is going to be Blood Feast. This explains the Blood Feast mechanic, which stores all bleed damage dealt in the zone. So every time anyone takes bleed damage, including teammates, whenever anyone takes bleed damage, it will be stored in this zone. Resets when moving to a different zone, which means that when you move to a different map, it will reset the amount. Okay, you can't just store Blood Feast and then move on to the next zone. This value is shared by all characters, okay? Everyone who uses Blood Feast as a mechanic will take from the shared communal pool, including enemies. If there's any higher kindred among the allies who consumes Blood Feast, this unit cannot consume until the other consumes. Okay, this one does not apply to us yet, until we get a higher kindred. I believe Barber is a tier 2 kindred, or like a second kindred, which means that if there is a first kindred amongst them, which has not been released yet, then they will always drink from the blood pool first before Outis. What does this mean? It means that in the future, if we have a first kindred in our team, probably Don Quixote, then she uses Blood Feast. She will drink from the Blood Feast pool until she's full, and then Outis gets the leftovers, which means if there's none left over, then she does not consume Blood Feast. So kindred seniority, it's about respecting your elders. Okay? Going back to here, when this unit enters the battlefield, the sleeping blood drenching the battlefield will surface. Don't even worry about this. This part, don't even worry. It just means that, when a character with Blood Feast, they can consume it, is on the battlefield, then the blood will materialize so you can actually see it. If you played Murder on the Warp Express against the boss, you will see that, the pools of blood like kind of just sit there on the battlefield. That's what it means. It's not really a mechanic. It's just a visual to let you know that someone's on the field. Okay, before we do the other ones, let's go ahead and read her skills. Sewing. Sewing is her first skill. 2 coins. Gluttony. On hit with this skill, heal. It's a heal on hit, meaning that you do need to hit. don't think you can clash and then just heal. You need to hit with this to heal. On use, consumes Blood Feast. So this is when you use it and not when you hit. So you will be able to consume Blood Feast no matter what. You will take from the Blood Feast pool and then gain a number of blood tinged scissor stacks for every amount you consumed. So you will start drinking the blood from the pool. When you use sewing, you drink blood from the pool and upgrade your scissor stack. Remember, bigger scissor is better. Okay, and if you didn't consume, you will gain bleed count. So if you didn't consume, it means the blood pool is empty. And what is the best way to fill the pool? Somebody's got to bleed. Which means if you didn't drink, you will actually apply bleed onto yourself so that you can bleed out and then fund the pool yourself. Ideally, that's not the case. Okay? Additionally, gain coin power for every bleed on the target. So when the enemy is bleeding out, you will be hitting much more often. You'll be winning clash much more often. Coin power is a gain a number. Probably 1 is gain an additional number for every one of your coins. So it's probably going to be a +2 on average to this roll. Okay, on hit, inflicts bleed. If a target has sewing target on them, inflicts count as well. So you are going to be able to apply bleed potency to deal more bleed damage, as well as inflict more bleed count, which makes them bleed more often. This is really good because we really don't have super consistent ways to apply bleed count right now. Except for a few like Kurakumo. I think maybe because Pointillist Isang applies it on random, and then Kurakumo has a few they can apply count, but realistically, the ones that apply count only apply 1 or 2. So having another character that can apply count is very, very good. Because once count runs out, then all of your bleed potency goes to waste. So you want to keep count above 0 at all times, and when you're stacking up bleed potency. Very easy skill to use. Just use it, when they're bleeding. And they have sewing target on them. We'll see how to apply sewing target with the second skill. Scission. 3 coin skill, Lust. You heal on hit for this skill as well. She's kind of like a self-healing monster. She has the ability to heal on every single one of her abilities. So she's never going to be low because part of her kit is her bleeding out, right? Consume up to X Blood Feast. This is also a drinking ability. So you'll also be able to drink from the pool using this ability when you use S1 or S2 to increase your blood scissor level. If this unit did not consume Blood Feast, gain bleed. So this one will gain bleed potency. So as long as you're drinking, you don't bleed. But if you do not drink from the pool, if the pool is empty, then you'll be bleeding. So basically on the first skill, on the first turn, before anyone has bleed, and no one has taken any bleed damage, you're probably going to be bleeding yourself on the first few turns. And then you're going to heal it back. If the target has a number of bleed, gain coin power. So same as the previous skill, you will gain coin power for bleed on the person you're trying to hit. This will also inflict bleed as well as more bleed potency if they're sewing, bleed as well as more bleed potency if they're sewing, and then on the third hit, you will inflict sewing target. So this is the way to inflict sewing target onto the enemy. Your S2. So you want to be opening with your S2 to apply sewing target onto them so that your other skills will benefit. Without S2, it's going to be harder for you to apply bleed and bleed count. You'll want to win clash with Decision with 3 coins remaining so that the third hit applies sewing target. This is important. Third hit of S2 is an important skill to hit. Last skill. Skill 3. I'll make you a new dress. 4 coins, Wrath. Big. This is that big, hit, like snip, 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 and then spin. That move in the trailer, that's this move. On hit, you heal. Before the attack, at a certain number of blood tinged scissor blade, probably like when you reach when you reach scissor blade 2, you will gain attack weight. At scissor blade 3, you'll gain more attack weight. Probably like gain 1 and then gain 2, or gain another 1. So this is a 3-person AoE skill at scissor blade when you're like fully donning the crow mask and you have like the big scissor, you'll hit 3 targets instead of 1. This is an AoE skill at higher ranks. So when you like level it up. And install. On use, if the target has bleed, gain coin power. On use, gain clash power for every bleed on target. So this is a skill that will pretty much always win clash if the enemy has a lot of bleed, because you're going to be rolling really, really high. Coin power is scaling with the number of coins you have. So the more coins you have, the better the coin power. Consume X blood tinged scissor blade for every attack weight gained. Oh, okay. So you lose blood tinged scissor blade stacks if you're hitting AoE. After attack, the target is killed, increases the blood feast. So this is another way to bank blood feast pool, is killing enemies with their S3. And then you regain half of the blood tinged scissor blade consumed by this skill. Okay, so you're not eating through your personal stack very, very fast, but you do need it high if you want to use this. The target is a sewing target, increases blood feast further and gains scissor blade. So you want to be hitting S3 after hitting S2 as well, because sewing target is important. But hits 1, 2, and 3 apply bleed, and then hits 4 deals more damage when you're high in blood tinged scissor blade. Okay. Next skill, Quiet Discourteous. At certain blood, so at level 2 you gain base power, at level 3 you gain base power. This is a counter gluttony skill, so you'll take the damage and then you'll hit back with a strong hit, which will be more powerful when you're higher in blood tinged scissor blade. BTS, BT boys. Gain coin power for every X bleed on self. It's a 1 coin skill. Inflicts bleed count on the enemy. So this is a way to increase the count on the enemy if you have nothing else. Ideally, you'd probably not use it as much as other ways to apply count, but this is a great way to apply count and deal some damage if you're high in stacks. And then we'll look at the passive. In clash against a sewing target, gain clash power. So this is another way. This is like against a sewing target, basically you always win. So she's kind of like a duelist in a sense. Like she's not Sank association, but she does really benefit from dueling. On hit, deal more damage for every total consumed by yourself. So as the battle goes on, as you drink more and more and more, the more you drink, the more damage you'll do. Okay? Which means not how much is in the pool, but how much she's drank throughout the battle, she'll do more damage. So late game, she's infinitely scaling, unless there's a maximum. She's a scaling damage dealer for late game. She needs to stack up like a character in League of Legends, like Veigar or Sion. She stacks up bleed, she drinks it, and then she does more damage as the fight goes on. She also deals more damage for every bleed on target. So the more damage she does, the more damage she'll do in the future. She's a setup late game bleed out character that wants to hit people with sewing target and people with bleeding at the same time. Support passive. Don Quixote Hard Blood Arts 8 Scissors. So this is a reference to how Don Quixote in this universe is Outis. Don Quixote is her parent's kindred. 1 hour with the fastest speed. If the enemy is killed, heal HP. 1 hour with the fastest speed if the enemy is killed after attack for the next turn. Inflicts bleed count when inflicting potency. This means that anytime you would see bleed, so bleed, if she is the character that kills, if the character with the fastest speed gets a kill, the next turn they will also inflict bleed count, which when inflicting bleed potency, which is really going to be really strong, and you'll see bleed counts like really skyrocket because a lot of characters apply bleed potency but have a problem inflicting count. This is going to be a crazy way to inflict count. You might actually have her sitting on the bench for a while, you know, to allow for this if you have a lot of characters that bleed out. And you don't have a lot of other synergy. But yes, so what is the game plan of this character? This Outis has a very simple plan. You're going to want to start with S2. Hit S2 on the enemy first, but when you win a clash, so if, you know, maybe perhaps hit someone unopposed or dominate somebody, dominate victory so you can maintain 3 coins. Hit somebody with S2 so that you can apply sewing target. And then from there, hit S2 and S1 to stack up Blood Tinged Scissor Blade. Also, you can use S3 as well anytime. But, you know, stack up Blood Tinged Scissor Blade and then nuke them. Nuke AoE with your S3. Right? So, the game plan is always hit somebody with sewing target with your S2 third hit. It's right here at the very bottom. It's very easy to miss. But once they have sewing target, then go to town and hit the person with sewing target over and over and over again until they're dead. And then rinse and repeat. That's it. That's the whole character. A lot of stuff. She gets a lot of benefits, a lot of ways to apply bleed, but that's all just like, you know, gravy. Really, the way to play this character, hit S2, last hit, and then just focus the guy with sewing target because she gets bonuses for hitting sewing target in a lot of ways. She applies more bleed, she gets clash power, she does more damage, she applies Blood Tinged Scissor Blade. Just let her drink. You're going to want to stack her up to her Crow Mask form, and then you can do big damage. Okay? They'll let you know when the best time to use S3 is. Obviously, just use whatever skills you got, but ideally, you're hitting a sewing target enemy. That's the whole character. It's just that easy. Very simple character. Next character is going to be the Hong Lu one. Is, a very basic Rupture ID. But also, uniquely, not only is he a Rupture ID, he's a counter bleed ID. So against enemies with a lot of bleed stuff, he will counter it because he has emergency septics. He can lose bleed potency on the combat by using his defensive skill. So if you have high bleed on yourself, you can unbleed. And then if the target is a Blood Fiend, Blood Bag, or has, more Rupture damage, deal more. On the skill use, if the unit has bleed, inflicts Rupture on hit. Okay. So, if this unit is bleeding, if this character is currently bleeding, you will apply more Rupture on the enemy. So, as you're bleeding out, you do more damage. This is kind of like a scrappy character. And specifically used best against enemies that apply bleed to you. So, Blood Fiends and blood bags, you better start running away from this guy. Support skill. Combat start one ally with the highest sum of bleed potency and count loses bleed count. So this reduces damage on your allies. It's a defensive ability that cleanses bleed from your allies. And then a highest speed with rupture. So it seems like this is a specialized character specifically dealing rupture damage, can be used in rupture teams, but also has additional benefits when hitting characters that will apply bleed to you, especially blood fiends and blood bags. He will have a field day because he does more damage against vampires. He's a vampire hunter character with a very specific ability. Now let's take a look at his abilities. Slam. If the target has rupture, gain coin power. So it performs better if the enemy has rupture. Inflicts rupture, inflicts rupture. Inflicts more rupture on heads hit. Okay? If the target has, so that's a very simple ability. It just inflicts rupture. Skill 2, Bone Crusher. If the target has X rupture, gain coin power. Same as the first one. If the target has X rupture and rupture count, this does not consume it, but gains coin power. If the target is a blood fiend or blood bag, gain more coin power. You see this? If they have rupture, gain coin power. If they're highly stacked, you don't consume rupture and you'll gain more coin power. And then if they're a blood fiend or blood bag, gain more coin power. It has only 2 coins, but you could see this skill rolling like 20 or like 24 on an enemy that is a blood fiend or blood bag. Specifically, this character is expertly used to dismantle enemies that have blood fiend or blood bag tag. So he's specifically a vampire hunter. On Clash, Wind inflicts rupture count. So this is a rupture count inflicting skill. Skill 1 inflicts rupture potency. Skill 2 inflicts count. You need both of them at a high number and maintained. Count is much more fickle than potency, so count is going to be harder to come by, but also more important. Once count runs out, you lose all that potency, so be careful. Also inflicts healing down on enemies. So this is an anti-healing skill. If an enemy has a lot of healing abilities, which is not just for vampires, but for other abilities too, he will inflict healing down. So he stops the enemy from healing as well. Which you saw earlier with Outis, who heals on every hit. Enemies that also heal on every hit, you'll be able to counter them. Last skill, A Cheerful Hunt's End. If the target has rupture, gain coin power. If they have this, gain more coin. So this also is another skill. You'll see this rolling really high against blood fiends. 3 coins, nothing to scoff at. This is at least 9 bonus. So you could see this skill rolling like, high 20s, maybe even 30. If all the conditions met. So if the enemy has rupture, has high rupture, and is a vampire, you'll be rolling really, really high against them. Basically destroying them. It inflicts count as well on Clash Win, and then inflicts a few rupture potencies. And then if the target has enough rupture, or the target has less than a certain amount of HP, it's an execute ability. So it does have bonus effect on enemies with low HP. You will do it again. So you will just be getting hits. You'll be getting hits in on this coin and additional hits in. In the trailer where he hits them down on the ground and then he does a pose and then hits them one more time. That's the coin being reused that we saw in the trailer. Overall, this character is very, very simple. Not much to explain. Very, very cool. A character specifically used to counter blood fiends, which will be very good for this chapter. And also great in later mirror dungeon, as well as later stages where you're going to be needing what you might see in Railway, a couple of blood fiends. And then you're like, okay, since the blood fiends are in this match, I'm gonna run in Honglu. For the most part, his most impressive ability is actually on his support passive, which reduces the bleeding on the enemy, on the allies, when they have a high bleeding count. So what does this mean? It means that you can potentially block a lot of damage with this skill, and that's every combat. right? And so this doesn't just apply to Blood Fiends. This works against Kurakumo. This works against, like, you know, those kinds of characters, like from the samurai. Those are those like sword wielding guys that apply bleed. Other enemies that apply bleed, also this works on. Anyone that applies bleed to you, he has some usage with his support passive. And then if you are against the Blood Fiend or Blood Bag, you slot him in, and he'll always be rolling high coins. Because S2 and S3 always will roll high coins against Blood Fiends and Blood Bag. So he's more consistent against vampires. And he also has a support passive off the field to assist in enemies that bleed. Overall, he's definitely more of a tech unit, but will always basically see a slot on your team over... I don't actually know if he even has any other IDs that apply rupture like this super well. Let's take a look. Really quickly. Na Yi Song, Honglu. Okay, let's take a look at Honglu. He does have rupture character stuff, but this will probably, he has a few rupture on his base, which is not going to be counted. I don't know why I opened these because I knew they were not. This is the rupture ID that I was looking for. Inflicts a few rupture, inflicts rupture. This is more of like a defensive ability character with like self-defensive skills and aggro. Not going to be so much used for rupture. He gains benefits on enemies with rupture, but most importantly, he doesn't apply any rupture count. I'm just going to make it hard to maintain rupture, whereas a new character inflicts count. And so you're going to be using this new Honglu probably over K-Corp Honglu for rupture. But yeah, overall, super cool. Characters are very easy to use. They released a few easy to use characters that have a lot of great benefits. High power scaling. This character very easy to use. Just use skill 2 to start off and then use the other skills afterwards. And then hitting sewing target is very important for a lot of benefits. This character great against Blood Fiends and Blood Bags. That's gonna be it, guys. Okay, I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Late. Also, subscribe and comment and do all the cool stuff as well, okay? Peace.